My name is Jessica Martin. I'm 33 years old, living in Seattle with my rescue dog Ollie, a golden retriever mix with one floppy ear that never quite stands upright. Until recently, I was just another marketing manager at Cascade Technologies, living a comfortable but unremarkable life in a cozy one-bedroom apartment overlooking Lake Union. I've always been the responsible one, the planner, the one who thinks 3 steps ahead. That's why what happened on March 14th, 2024, hit me so hard. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was that I never saw it coming. I still remember exactly where I was when everything changed. Gate C-12 at SeaTac Airport, waiting to board my delayed flight to Chicago. The terminal buzzed with the usual airport symphony, gate announcements, rolling suitcases, and the hum of hundreds of conversations. I'd been scrolling through Instagram mindlessly when a notification popped up. At Emily Martin tagged in a new photo. My sister Emily and I had planned this trip for months. Girls only? She'd insisted. Just us reconnecting, like when we were kids. The idea had seemed so perfect that I'd rearranged my entire work schedule and spent a small fortune on non-refundable tickets. But there on my screen was Emily, her blonde hair shining in the Miami sun, cocktail in hand, standing next to Mark Turner, her on-again, off-again boyfriend of 5 years. His arm was draped casually around her shoulders, and they were surrounded by a group of people I'd never seen before. The caption read, "Squad goals achieved. Miami nights just got better. At Mark Turner. @Miami vibes. #best friends." My stomach dropped. The boarding call for my flight faded into background noise as I stared at the photo. Unable to process what I was seeing. I'd taken time off work. I'd spent $900 on flights. I'd been excited for weeks. And now I was looking at photographic evidence that I'd been deliberately excluded. Again. This wasn't the first time Emily had done something like this. It wasn't even the 10th time. But something in me snapped that day in the airport. As I sat there, watching happy travelers board the plane without me, I made a decision that would change everything. This was the last time my sister would make me feel like this. Growing up as sisters just 4 years apart should have made Emily and me natural allies. In those early years, we were inseparable. I have faded photographs of us in matching outfits, gap-toothed smiles wide, arms around each other at the state fair, at the beach, in our backyard treehouse. But somewhere along the way, things changed. Emily, with her effortless charisma and stunning looks, became the golden child. I became the reliable one, the steady one, the one who was always there to pick up the pieces. Our parents, Linda and Robert Martin, never saw the dynamic for what it was. Mom was a kindergarten teacher before retirement, always quick to smooth over conflicts with well-meaning platitudes. Emily's just more spontaneous, honey, or, you know your sister loves you in her own way. Dad, an accountant to his core, would retreat behind his newspaper when tensions rose, emerging only to suggest we work it out like adults. But the Emily they saw and the Emily I knew were different people. To them, she was charming, affectionate, and just a bit scatterbrained. To me, she was calculating, manipulative, and utterly self-centered. The pattern had been established years ago, but it had intensified after Emily met Mark Turner at a graphic design conference in 2019. Mark was handsome in that artsy way, beard always perfectly trimmed, vintage band t-shirts that cost more than they should, and an air of studied casualness that somehow made everyone want his approval. Emily fell hard and fast. Their relationship was a roller coaster from the start. Mark would shower her with attention, then disappear for days. He'd plan elaborate dates, then cancel at the last minute, and each time he pulled away, Emily would come crying to me. "I don't know what I did wrong, Jess." She'd sob into her wine glass on my couch. "He said he needed space, but then I saw he was at the loft with his friends." And I'd comfort her. I'd make her tea and listen to her heartbreak for hours. I'd help her craft the perfect, casual text to send him. I'd be there when she needed a shoulder to cry on, every single time. Then Mark would decide he wanted her back, and Emily would vanish from my life until the next crisis. The worst part? I kept letting it happen. January 12th, 2022, was the first time I should have seen the truth. Emily called me in tears, saying her car had broken down and she needed $8,500 for repairs immediately or she'd lose her job. I didn't have that kind of money sitting around, but I had good credit. I took out a personal loan and transferred the money to her account that same day. 3 weeks later, I saw her Instagram post of her and Mark at a luxury resort in Cancun. Best surprise ever from the best boyfriend ever. #blessed, #Cancun, #couple goals. The timestamp matched exactly when she was supposedly waiting for her car to be fixed. When I confronted her, she laughed it off. Oh, Mark surprised me. The car thing worked out. His uncle owns a garage and fixed it for free. I was going to tell you, but it all happened so fast. What about paying me back? I'd asked. God, Jess, why are you so uptight about money? I'll pay you back when I can. You know things are tight right now with my influencer career just taking off. I never saw a penny of that money. Then there was the incident with my car. I'd let Emily borrow my Honda CR-V when hers was in the shop again. She returned it with a massive dent in the passenger door and merely shrugged when I pointed it out. It's just a dent, Jess. The car still drives, doesn't it? Besides, it's not like it was new or anything. The repairs cost me $12,200 in 3 days without transportation, but the Bahamas trip in December 2023 should have been my final warning. Emily had organized a sister's getaway to celebrate Christmas early. I'd spent months saving for it, excited for the chance to rebuild our relationship away from distractions. 2 days before departure, she casually mentioned that Mark would be joining us. I thought this was just us, I'd said, trying to keep the disappointment from my voice. Did I say that? I don't think I ever said it was just us. You know how forgetful you are. Jess, I didn't go. I lost $12,200 in non-refundable flights and spent Christmas alone, watching Emily's Instagram fill with photos of her and Mark swimming with dolphins and drinking from coconuts. So I shouldn't have been surprised by what happened with Miami, but somehow I still was. Maybe because this time, the lie had been so explicit, so unnecessary. Girls only. Jess, no boyfriends, no distractions, just us reconnecting, like when we were kids. Those words kept replaying in my head as I sat in the airport, staring at the evidence of my sister's latest betrayal. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend and roommate, Claire Lou. Jess, please tell me you've seen Emily's Instagram. I'm so sorry. This is beyond messed up. Claire had attached another screenshot. This one from Emily's stories. Emily and Mark kissing in front of a sunset. With the caption, Girls trip, got an upgrade. At Mark Turner, had Miami surprise. I felt my cheeks burn with humiliation. It wasn't just that Emily had lied to me. She was flaunting it publicly, making sure everyone knew that Mark had been the priority all along, that I was an afterthought, a placeholder, easily discarded when something better came along. With shaking hands, I called Emily. To my surprise, she answered. Hey, Jess, aren't you supposed to be on a plane? Seriously, Emily? You said girls only. My voice cracked with emotion. There was a pause, then a theatrical sigh. Oh, don't be like that. Mark surprised me. What was I supposed to do? Send him home? You're being ridiculous. You could have told me. You could have let me know plans had changed instead of letting me find out from Instagram. God, you're so dramatic. It's not that big a deal. Just come down anyway. There's plenty of room. Room for what, Emily? To watch you and Mark while I trail behind like a third wheel? No thanks. Fine, be that way. I was trying to include you, but if you want to be bitter and jealous, that's your choice. She hung up. I sat there on the tan leather bench in the airport lounge, heart pounding, tears blurring the gates board. A decision crystallized in my mind with surprising clarity. I wasn't going to be her doormat anymore. What Emily didn't know, what no one in my family knew, was that I had a secret life of my own. 3 years earlier, I'd started a side business called the Green Owl Marketing Co. What began as freelance work to supplement my income had blossomed into a legitimate company with clients across the Pacific Northwest. By March 2024, Green Owl was generating $120,000 in quarterly revenue. I'd kept it quiet for several reasons, partly because I was waiting until I could quit my day job safely, partly because I didn't want to jinx my success, but mostly because I knew exactly how my family would react. Mom would worry about the instability, Dad would lecture me about taxes and benefits, and Emily would somehow make it about her. So I'd built my business in silence, saving aggressively. By the time of the Miami incident, I had an emergency fund of $75,000, money that was supposed to be for my dream solo trip through Europe once Green Owl hit certain benchmarks. As I sat in the airport that day, I made a new plan for that money. If Emily wanted to humiliate me publicly, I could play that game too. But I would need evidence, strategy, and perfect timing. I canceled my flight to Chicago and went home. For the next 2 weeks, I gathered everything. Screenshots of Emily explicitly promising a girls-only trip, her social media posts flaunting Mark's presence, text messages where she gaslit me about what she'd said. I created a timeline of her broken promises and manipulations, complete with dates, amounts, and consequences. On March 20th, I called my Aunt Diane, a family lawyer at Whitfield Legal Group. I didn't tell her everything, just enough to understand my legal standing regarding the money Emily owed me. It wasn't just the $8,500 loan anymore. Over the years, there had been countless emergencies where I'd stepped in. Rent when she was between gigs, car repairs, medical bills she claimed insurance wouldn't cover. I'd kept records of all of it, more out of habit than any expectation of repayment. Jessica, honey, I hate to say this about family, but based on what you've told me, Emily has been systematically taking advantage of you, Aunt Diane said, her normally warm voice tight with concern. The good news is, you have documentation for most of these transactions. The bad news is, pursuing this legally would be expensive and would almost certainly fracture your family. I understand, I replied. I'm not looking to sue her. I just needed to know where I stand. Well, if you're not pursuing legal action, what exactly are you planning? I hesitated. Let's just say I'm finally setting some boundaries. What I didn't tell Aunt Diane was that I'd also been in contact with someone unexpected. Ava Turner, Mark's cousin. Ava had reached out to me through LinkedIn 6 months earlier, after one of Emily and Mark's more public breakups. I know we've never met, her message had read, but I think we might have some common ground regarding Mark and Emily. If you're ever free for coffee, I'd like to talk. I'd ignored it initially, assuming it was some kind of trap, but after the Miami incident, I'd circled back. We met at a quiet cafe in Capitol Hill, far from Emily's usual haunts. Ava looked nothing like Mark, where he was all carefully cultivated edge. She was straightforward and practical, dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, minimal makeup, sensible clothes. She got right to the point. Mark complains about Emily constantly, she said after we'd settled with our drinks, but he keeps going back to her because she pays for everything. Did you know that? I hadn't known, but it made a sickening kind of sense, all those emergencies Emily had needed money for. He recorded voice memos to himself after their fights. Ava continued, planning what to say to get her back, laughing about how easy it is to manipulate her. I found them when I was using his phone to call an Uber one night. I was so disgusted I made copies. Why are you telling me this? Ava stirred her tea. Because Emily's not the only victim here. Mark talks about you too. How Emily makes fun of you behind your back. How they use you as their personal ATM. It's cruel, and it's been going on too long. She slid a USB drive across the table. These are the recordings. Do with them what you will. I'm moving to Portland next month for a job, and I'm done covering for my cousin's garbage behavior. The recordings were worse than I could have imagined. Mark's voice, smug and calculating. Emily's sister is such an easy mark. Em says we just have to mention an emergency and she'll fork over whatever we need. It's like having a trust fund without the rich parents. And Emily's laugh in the background. Jess is so desperate to be needed. It's almost sad. I felt sick listening to them, but also strangely liberated. The worst had happened, my suspicions confirmed in the cruelest way, and I had survived it. By the end of March, I had everything I needed. The final piece fell into place when Emily announced she was throwing herself a welcome back home party on April 1st at the Belmont Plaza rooftop, one of the most exclusive venues in Chicago. The timing was perfect. I flew to Chicago the morning of the party, checking into a hotel 3 blocks from the Belmont. I'd brought one suitcase with me, containing everything I needed. A sleek black sheath dress Emily had once mocked as something I'd never be able to afford, the USB drive from Ava, and a small projector I'd borrowed from work. The invitation had specified cocktail attire and a 7:00 p.m. start time. I arrived at 7:45, late enough to ensure everyone would be there, early enough that no one would be too drunk to remember what happened next. The rooftop of the Belmont Plaza was stunning. String lights crisscrossed overhead, giving the space a warm glow against the darkening sky. Chicago's skyline provided a dramatic backdrop. Buildings lit up like stars fallen to earth. About 50 people milled around, champagne flutes in hand. I recognized most of them. Family members, childhood friends, Emily's growing circle of influencer acquaintances. I spotted Emily immediately. She was holding court near the bar, resplendent in a coral dress that set off her tan. Mark stood beside her, his hand possessively at the small of her back. My parents were nearby, Mom elegant in navy blue, Dad uncomfortable but trying in his best suit. No one noticed me at first. I made my way to the AV setup in the corner, where a screen had been installed for what the invitation had described as a special slideshow of Miami memories. The tech guy was easy to distract, one mention of a problem at the bar, and he was gone, leaving me alone with the equipment. It took me less than 2 minutes to connect my projector and cue up my presentation. Then I picked up a champagne flute from a passing server and clinked it loudly with a fork I'd taken from the appetizer table. The sharp sound cut through the murmur of conversation. Heads turned, eyes widened as people recognized me. Jessica, the reliable sister, suddenly appearing at a party I wasn't supposed to attend. "Emily," I called, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "I thought I'd surprise you with a special slideshow of my own." Emily's expression shifted from confusion to alarm. "Jess, what are you doing here?" I smiled, a genuine smile that seemed to unsettle her more than anger would have. "I'm just doing what you taught me, sis. Showing up unexpectedly and changing the plans. Isn't that how it works?" Before she could respond, I pressed the button on my remote. The screen behind me lit up with a simple title: What She Said versus What She Did. The first slide appeared, a screenshot of Emily's text message to me. "Girls only trip, Jess. No boyfriends, no distractions, just us reconnecting, like when we were kids." Beside it, her Instagram post with Mark in Miami. A murmur went through the crowd. I clicked to the next slide. Emily's email about needing $8,500 for car repairs. Alongside her Cancun vacation photos posted the same week. Slide after slide, the evidence mounted, the money she'd borrowed and never repaid, the car she'd damaged and dismissed, the cruel things she and Mark had said about me when they thought no one was listening. I didn't speak during the presentation. I didn't need to. The facts spoke for themselves, displayed in clean, undeniable clarity on the screen behind me. When the final slide appeared, a simple statement of the total amount Emily had taken from me over the years, $27,450. The rooftop had fallen completely silent. Emily's face had drained of color. Mark was looking everywhere but at her. My mother had her hand over her mouth, eyes wide with shock. My father stood frozen, his usual impassivity replaced by stunned disbelief. "So," I said into the silence, my voice calm and clear, "that's why I couldn't make it to Miami. Or rather, why I wasn't invited to the real trip, I just thought everyone should know exactly who they're celebrating tonight. Emily finally found her voice. This is insane. You're twisting everything. Those messages are edited. Her voice rose in panic as she looked around for support. She's always been jealous of me. She's making this up. Am I? I asked quietly. I pressed another button, and Mark's voice filled the rooftop. Emily's sister is such an easy mark. Em says, we just have to mention an emergency and she'll fork over whatever we need. It's like having a trust fund without the rich parents. Emily's laugh. Jess is so desperate to be needed. It's almost sad. The recording was short, but devastating. I saw my Aunt Margaret put down her drink and step away from Emily. I saw my cousin Zach shake his head in disgust. I saw the influencers Emily had been cultivating relationships with exchange glances and reach for their phones, no doubt already distancing themselves from the impending social media fallout. Mark was the first to break. I was just repeating what you said, Em, he stammered, stepping away from her. You were the one who called her an ATM. Emily whirled on him. Shut up. Just shut up. She turned back to me, eyes wild. You're ruining everything. Why are you doing this to me? I'm not doing anything to you. Emily, I'm just finally telling the truth. You did this to yourself. My father finally stepped forward, his accountant's mind clearly still processing the financial implications of what he'd just seen. Let's all go inside and talk this out like adults, he said, falling back on his usual conflict resolution strategy. We're family. No, Dad, I said gently. We're not going to smooth this over anymore. Emily has been systematically lying to and using me for years, and you and Mom have enabled it. I'm done. My mother began to cry. Jessica, please, whatever Emily's done, we can work through it. That's what families do. Real families don't treat each other like this. Mom, real families don't have favorites they allow to exploit the others. I've spent my entire adult life trying to earn the same love and respect you give Emily automatically, and I'm done trying. Emily, sensing the tide turning against her, changed tactics. Tears welled in her eyes. The same performative tears I'd seen her use countless times to get her way. Jess, I'm so sorry if you felt hurt. I never meant to. Save it, I interrupted. I'm not here for an apology. I'm here to show everyone exactly who you are, and I've done that. Now I'm leaving. I turned to address the stunned crowd. Enjoy the party. The drinks are on. Emily, or rather, they're on me, since I paid for them. As I walked toward the elevator, Aunt Margaret stepped into my path. Unlike my parents, she'd always seen through Emily's charm. I knew something felt off when she didn't tell you about Mark going to Miami, she said quietly. I'm so sorry. Jessica, we should have paid more attention. I squeezed her hand. It's okay. I'm okay now. The elevator doors opened, and I stepped inside, leaving behind the stunned silence of the rooftop. As the doors closed, I caught one last glimpse of Emily, the golden child, the favored daughter, standing alone in the center of her ruined party, finally facing the consequences of her actions. The aftermath was swift and seismic. Emily's carefully curated social media presence imploded overnight. She lost 25,000 followers within 48 hours as the story spread through Chicago's influencer circles. Several guests demanded refunds for the girls-only Miami packages she'd been selling, resulting in over $3,400 in credit card chargebacks. Mark, predictably, disappeared as soon as things got difficult. I heard through Ava that he'd moved to Los Angeles a week after the party, reportedly telling friends that Emily had gotten too complicated. My parents were a different story. The day after the party, my phone exploded with calls and texts from them. I let them go to voicemail. I wasn't ready to talk, wasn't ready to hear the excuses and justifications that would inevitably come. When I finally listened to the messages 3 days later, I was surprised by what I heard. Jessica, it's Dad. I don't know what to say. We saw the evidence. We believe you. Please call us when you're ready. We love you. My mother's message was tearful, but similarly contrite. Honey, I had no idea things had gotten so bad between you and Emily. I should have seen it. I should have protected you better. I'm so sorry. I didn't call them back immediately. Instead, I did something I'd been planning for years. I booked my solo trip to Europe. 2 weeks in Italy, followed by a train journey through France, Switzerland, and finally England. I'd be leaving May 1st, exactly 1 month after the confrontation. The night before my departure, I finally called my parents. The conversation was difficult, filled with long silences and painful admissions. "We never meant to favor Emily," my mother said. "We just thought she needed more help, more guidance. You were always so capable, so independent." "That doesn't excuse what happened," I replied. "Being capable doesn't mean I didn't need you too." "You're right," my father said, his voice rough with emotion. "We failed you, Jessica, and we don't know if we can ever make it right, but we'd like to try." I told them I needed time. I told them I was going to Europe, alone, to figure out what I wanted my life and my relationship with them to look like going forward. They didn't try to stop me. "Just be safe," my mother said, "and know that we love you. We've always loved you, even if we didn't show it the right way." "I love you too," I said, and was surprised to find I meant it. The anger hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed into something more complex, more nuanced, something that left room for healing. Eventually, Emily was a different story. She tried to contact me multiple times in those weeks before my trip. Calls, texts, even a handwritten letter delivered to my apartment. I read the letter once, noting the familiar patterns of manipulation and self-justification, then threw it away without responding. The morning I left for Europe, Claire drove me to the airport. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" she asked, as she helped me with my luggage. 2 months is a long time to be alone, I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. "I'm not running away, if that's what you're worried about. I'm running towards something. I need to figure out who I am without all the family drama, without being defined as the responsible one or Emily's sister. Well, whoever that person turns out to be. I'm pretty sure I'll like her," Claire said, giving me a fierce hug. "She already has excellent taste in best friends." That made me laugh, which felt like a victory in itself. Europe was everything I'd hoped for, and more. I wandered through ancient ruins in Rome, ate gelato by the Trevi Fountain, got lost in the narrow streets of Florence. I sat in cafes in Paris, writing in my journal and watching the world go by. I hiked in the Swiss Alps until my legs ached and my mind was clear. And I worked, too. Green Owl marketing didn't stop just because I was overseas. In fact, being away from the constraints of my day job allowed me to focus on my company in a way I never had before. I took calls from charming European hotel rooms, pitched to new clients via video conference, and laid the groundwork for expansion. By the time I returned to Seattle in July, I'd made my decision. I gave notice at Cascade Technologies and moved Green Owl into a small but perfect office space in Capitol Hill. I hired 2 part-time employees and set ambitious goals for the rest of the year. Emily had undergone her own transformation in my absence. With her Life with M brand in tatters, she'd pivoted to become a couples travel influencer, documenting her adventures with a new boyfriend. Not Mark, but a venture capitalist named Ryan who seemed genuinely smitten with her. Her follower count was slowly rebuilding, though nowhere near its previous heights. We didn't speak. I saw her posts occasionally when mutual friends liked them, but I never reached out, and neither did she. Some distances, once created, can't be bridged with words alone. My parents were trying, in their way. They'd started therapy, both individually and as a couple. They called once a week, careful not to push but consistently present. They never asked me to forgive Emily or to reunite the family. They seemed to understand, finally, that some things can't be fixed with platitudes and family dinners. By November, Green Owl marketing had exceeded all my projections, on track to hit $500,000 in annual revenue. I'd moved to a larger apartment with a view of the mountains and adopted a second dog, a scrappy little terrier mix named Pepper, who became Ollie's constant companion. I'd started mentoring young women in business through a local nonprofit, sharing what I'd learned about entrepreneurship and setting boundaries, and I'd begun dating again, cautiously. His name was David, a marine biologist I'd met through Claire. He was kind and thoughtful and utterly uncomplicated in a way that felt revolutionary after the drama of the past year. On November 10th, I received an unexpected email from Emily. The subject line was simple. I understand now. Jess, I've been in therapy since April. Real therapy. Not the Instagram kind. It's been the hardest thing I've ever done. Looking at myself honestly, harder than losing followers or credibility, or even Mark, though that turned out to be a blessing in disguise. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. And I know that now. I'm writing because my therapist thought it might help me to articulate what I've learned, and because you deserve to hear it, even if you never want to speak to me again. The truth is, I was jealous of you, always. You were smarter, more capable, more genuine. People respected you in a way they never respected me. I needed constant validation because I knew, deep down, that I wasn't worth much without it. So I took from you your money, your time, your emotional support, because having those things made me feel like I had some of your worth, too. It was wrong. It was cruel. And I'm so sorry. I don't expect a response. I just wanted you to know that what you did that night at the Belmont Plaza, as painful and humiliating as it was, might have saved me from becoming someone even worse. So thank you for that. At least, I hope you're well. Mom says your business is thriving. I'm not surprised. You always were the one who could build something real. Emily. I read the email 3 times, feeling something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, exactly, but a loosening of the knot of anger I'd carried for so long. I didn't reply that day, or the next. I wasn't sure if I ever would, but I saved the email, a record of an ending that might, someday, become a different kind of beginning. That night, sitting on my balcony with Ollie and Pepper curled at my feet, watching the lights of Seattle shimmer against the dark water of the Sound, I thought about the long, strange journey that had brought me here, how the worst betrayal of my life had somehow led me to my greatest breakthrough. I'd lost a sister but found myself. I'd walked away from the familiar patterns of family dysfunction and built something new and wholly mine. The cost had been high, higher than anyone should have to pay for self-determination, but I couldn't regret the outcome. Sometimes you have to tear something down completely before you can build it back better. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from those who cannot love you properly. And sometimes, the family you're born into isn't the family you're meant to have. These were hard truths, but standing on the other side of them, I felt stronger than I ever had before. Whatever came next, whether reconciliation or permanent separation, whether new beginnings or final endings, I would face it on my own terms, and that, I realized as I sipped my wine and gazed at the city I'd made my own, was the most valuable thing I'd gained from all of this. The knowledge that I was enough, just as I was, that I could build a life that reflected my own values rather than responding to others' expectations, that I could set boundaries and stick to them, even when it hurt. That night, for the first time in years, I slept without dreams of reconciliation or revenge. Instead, I dreamed of the future, open and undefined, but undeniably mine.